Starcast Network. Out of the shadows comes the best of indie podcasts. Welcome to Castles and Cryptids, where the castles are haunted and the cryptids are cryptic as fuck. And I'm your host, Alanna.
I'm Kelsey.
And Gordo is here in the pod closet. He is the podcat.
Yeah,
Just to
the
represent.
mic not pick anything up because it's set to pick up only audio coming from like the front of it, but his face is like 2 inches from the back of it. So it looks like I'm interviewing him. You see those videos where people just hold up a microphone to a cat and the cat looks really confused but like really cute? That's when he's just like direct eye contact staring at me, but it's from behind the mic and it looks so cute.
Oh, another thing to buy, mini microphone.
There's ones that you can get that you plug. I'm sure there's one you can plug into your laptop, but I know there's ones you can plug into your phone, and they're like
Oh
really
my.
tiny. It's like
Oh,
hilarious.
I've seen like, like TikTokers or whatever doing little.
I would definitely get that and be like, Gordo,
Here's the
like
scoop.
your thoughts? And we would take
Yeah.
videos just interviewing our pets.
Back to you. Yeah, exactly.
Now Gordo with the weather. And it's just like, back to you. He's like, huh?
He is licking his genitals. It probably means it's gonna rain. I have a funnish fact on a bottle cap, but I don't know if I've ever read it on the pod before. Tell me if this sounds familiar.
A
The
bottle
bullfrog. It's on the Snapple. I don't know. It had an iced tea beverage or something.
cap.
It had a fun fact on the inside.
Cute.
Remember when they used to do that?
Yeah.
It says that the bullfrog is the only animal that never sleeps. Did I say that
Oh,
one
I don't
before?
remember that. I don't remember hearing that before.
Okay, because it's weird.
Yeah.
Real fact number 44. Yeah, get all the real facts at Snapple. Okay.
Hitting you only with the facts. I used to
Brought to you by
always buy
Snapple.
Snapple. Before I got into like Brisk and Arizona iced tea. Oh.
Well, now that you're an adult, of course. My kid really likes Brisk. My mom was like, it's a little sugary. But yeah, I think they had Snapple only at the Fife and Deckel, maybe, because I just go there to get them damn sandwiches. They're so good. Chicken
Oh,
salad.
okay.
And the pies. Oh, Dean Winchester would be in heaven. Okay, I have a cryptid fact too that I thought of off the top of my head because I heard it on a
Oh,
podcast.
really? Share it with us. Share it with the class.
Yeah, I was listening to an episode of 10ish podcast where it was like Bigfoot sightings, top 10 Bigfoot sightings. Wait. Yes. Yes, sorry. I had a
It's like,
flashback to
I
a
can't
totally
help you.
different one. I was like, was it UFOs? No, that was something different. Uh Bigfoot sightings by state in the US. So it was like, okay, first they're like, well, you can guess probably the ones it's not pretty easily. There's some that you're like, they're too small, or like Hawaii, you don't hear about it, right? Like, you don't really.
He's wearing a Hawaiian shirt and like sandals.
I mean, you've got the Yahweh guy down under, so it's not to say he's never appeared an ape-like man in the southern hemisphere, but still, you're right, exactly. Um, but the number one state was actually Washington, because he's a Pacific
Okay.
Northwest bitch, like I've said before.
Yeah, that makes
um,
sense.
yeah, and like in Canada, it would, if it wasn't BC, it would be Alberta, like because we get the national
Yeah.
parks and our Rocky Mountains here, which run right along border, obviously, BC and Alberta. If you live here, you know that. But surprising, the other states, some of them were like Iowa and like one's kind of in the Midwest and
Oh,
stuff, which was kind of weird. I know.
he's not a redneck. Get out of here.
Also, Texas.
Yeehaw.
I think maybe anywhere where there's like a lot of open, I don't know, because you think of like forested space, not like,
Yeah, like I don't think of open,
yeah.
flat plains and that kind of stuff. Gordo, what are you doing?
But I haven't been to
It's...
Texas.
Yeah, I
So,
haven't either.
yeah.
Okay,
We
just
have prairies like on the other side of us.
being so annoying right now.
Yeah, that's the mic picked up something there. That was, I will have an outtake. Or
Well, he's
cats.
laying. Now you're licking your butt. Okay, just pick a spot and calm down.
Yeah, they're worse than dogs because they can just jump up anywhere. Sorry, Gordo outtakes if we just cut
Now he's
some
just smacking me with
shenanigans.
his tail.
What episode is this, Kelsey? Tell the people.
It's episode 116, and it's like copycat crimes, inspired by crimes. A
Yes.
revisited topic. It's been a really long time. Basically, since our Dexter episode, we haven't done this again.
Yeah.
So,
And that was specifically Dexter Copycat Killers.
yeah.
So I hardly even thought of
Mhm.
that when we were doing this one. I was like, ooh, Copycat Killers. What kind
Yeah,
of
I just
lists
wanted
are
to do
these going to
this
bring up?
one. I just wanted to do this one after I had watched the newest season of Catching Killers on
Oh,
Netflix.
yeah.
And
That's a
they
good
had one
one.
of the cases on there, and I was just like, oh my god, I love this, and Alanna will love this, and I hope she's never heard it before, and I really have to cover it, and it's gonna be awesome. So then when we were talking about episode topics, I was like, we have to do like some sort of copycat thing.
Um,
It's when the
is he
legs
okay?
come over and it starts pressing buttons on the keyboard, and I have problems.
True that.
God, buddy. I'm gonna kick you out of the room. Just like Fenrir. Huh?
Oh, I know.
Okay.
Um, to your point, I have had not heard of your case. Now have only heard of, the general idea of it. Of nothing else.
Okay. Yeah, I'm so excited then, because this one's gonna be right up your alley, like 100%.
It's got to be
It's
good.
really
It came
cool.
up on the first list that I looked at, the first and only list that I looked at, but I was like,
Okay, yeah.
nope.
It is a fairly easily like connected like copycat thing. Like there's a lot going on that
Yeah,
like that. So yeah, it makes sense that it would show up on a lot of the lists very easily.
that's good. I'm glad that yours is like kind of a clear cut copycat, let's say.
Yeah, 100%. It's all in the name. It's very even the
Okay.
name is a copy.
Okay, so what are you
Yeah.
covering? Tell the people. Sorry, now I'm excited.
I There's a bunch of different names, I guess, that this person has. It most
Oh.
commonly, I'd say they're referred to as the New York Zodiac Killer. Um,
Yeah. I
they're
mean, that would be the
also
name. That's the
yeah,
headline grabber.
yeah. They're also known as the Brooklyn Sniper, the Copycat Zodiac Killer.
Oh, okay,
Uh,
okay.
what I
Variations.
think it what I think is pronounced like Faust, but I never really got an explanation about that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Faust. I think that's normally like Faust.
Yeah, it sounds
And
familiar as a name and possibly a name
yeah.
of a famous person, but I'm like, I don't know. Was that like a
Yeah,
writer or
right?
something? I
I don't know. That one wasn't ever really explained to me. It didn't make a lot of sense.
clearly I'm
They're
not
also
cultured
called
enough to know.
they're also called the Zodiac Shooter and the New York Zodiac Killer. And that one just adds another, like,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah, but
some
yeah,
similar
like I
ones.
said, the most common is the New York Zodiac Killer,
Yeah.
and they were an American serial killer who swept through and kept New York City in a state of terror from uh fairly early 1990 until I think about the middle of 1993. So
Okay.
like 3 years, they were pretty worried about this.
Sorry, I was trying
Yeah.
to just double check by Google and I was like, Faust is a hamlet in Alberta. But other than that, I can't.
Oh.
I guess not anyone famous that I should know.
No, there's like a writer. I'm sure their last name is Faust.
I
Whatever.
yeah, that's what sounds familiar to me too. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, so diving right in. We'll start with the first murder. Actually, I guess it's not the first
Damn.
murder. Because before the first murder, in November of 1989, the 13th precinct of New York City ended up receiving a warning, like a written warning, saying that people would be killed. And
Ooh.
this, yeah, like very ominous. And the letter contained a mysterious circle that was divided into like sections. Um,
Okay.
mhm, yeah.
A
And
symbol. A cryptic symbol.
yeah,
Hmm.
the killer ended up I kind of said ended up attacking people throughout New York City beginning in 1990, and this like started about 60 uh what was this, 16 years after the original Zodiac killer had like they had ever heard from him, like the last time he had killed or sent like a letter or anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, almost a whole generation after.
Yeah. So the first killing, I have like as much information I could really could find. I ended up not rewatching the Catching Killers episode. I kind of ran out of time too, but I don't remember them having a whole lot about specific victims either. So this is really what I could piece together based on like news sources I read and
Hmm.
write-ups about it. So there is some conflicting information. I've tried to just go based on who was the most credible source or what did most sources say. Uh,
Okay.
so
Yeah, it can be hard.
yeah, this one I'll mention it because yeah, it's a little hard. So March 8th, 1990 is the first killing. It was Mario Orozco. I'm gonna say
Okay.
Orozco. He is
Mario
49.
O. Yeah.
Yeah. 49, he was shot in the back,
Oh.
and the bullet ended up getting stuck, lodged next to his spine, but he did end up leaving. He ended up living. He survived. Sorry.
Oh, good. I didn't know if you were gonna say
Yeah.
bleeding out or so. Like,
No,
that's crazy.
I don't know if they were maybe able to remove it or not. Like I know they're kind of concerned like about stuff by the spine. They don't always want to go in and remove stuff. So yeah, but he did end up
Yeah.
living, and
Holy shit.
um, I think I don't want to give stuff away. Hold on. Okay, I'm not gonna say any. I'm not gonna say one point until the end.
I have no
Um,
questions then.
Omit information. Beep. Redacted. And then, sorry, I didn't re-review my notes, or this wouldn't have. Um, yeah, so that's really all the information I could find about that. But while searching the scene of the shooting, police ended up discovering a note that read, "This is the Zodiac." And it was wrapped around what's called a zip gun, which was
Oh.
what had been used to fire at Orozco. And it's basically like a homemade kind of gun. Like it's not a typical gun or anything like that.
Oh.
Like it's very homemade, like
3D printed.
Yeah.
No, probably not in the 90s.
Yeah, be pre like 3D printed, but yeah, they call them like zip guns. Like it's basically a homemade
Interesting.
gun. Yeah.
Somehow they jerry rigged a gun.
Yeah, I
Sounds
mean it is
safe.
possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next one happened on March 29th, 1990, and this was about 3 weeks after the first shooting. Jermaine Montenegro, who's 34, was shot in the lower left side of his body, and the bullet ended up
Mhm.
going through his liver.
Oh no.
Yeah. He had been able to tell investigators that the shooter had, for some reason, searched through his pockets, um, presumably looking for like Montenegro's passport. So like he had been shot, and then guys like rummaging through like his pockets and had been like what he grabbed ended up being like his passport, and that's what he was interested in, which was kind of strange.
Okay.
And yeah, he also ended up surviving. He lived.
Wow, so he robbed him, but he didn't kill him.
Yeah. And
Good.
then
As long as he doesn't have
uh
any lasting damage.
yeah, again, like these that's basically all the information. Like I could get
Hmm.
not too much more on each of these, which was kind of disappointing. Um yeah, I wish I could have gotten more about them. The third attack ended up happening on May 31st, 1990, when Joseph Joe Proch, Proch, maybe it's Proch, who's 78.
Oh,
Gordo, you just okay, the mic doesn't need to be between your spread legs. I don't need to be talking into your butthole. He's just like, ah! He was laying on his back with his legs spread, and the mic was in between his legs.
as they just let their hips like fall out, yeah,
Yeah,
to
like,
the
fuck
side.
off.
Oh my god. He's
Oh, now
doing
you're.
cat yoga.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so Pro sure. He was 78, and
Right.
he was, yeah, so pretty old. He was shot in his lower back while walking near his home around 2 a.m. And he ended up getting shot like in the kidney and ended up hitting his kidney.
What the hell? Does this guy like
Mhm.
know what organs he's aiming for? I wonder. It's
Yeah,
like
it's a little weird.
not kill shots necessarily. Like he's not going for the head or the
Yeah,
heart or
no.
weird.
Um he also ended up surviving the attack. Unfortunately, like later he did die in hospital. There
Oh,
was conflicting information I found about when he died. It either said on June 4th or the 24th of 1990. So I don't know if he lived another
okay.
month or if he only lived for 4 more days. But
Hmm.
he yeah, he did pass
Not
away
very
during that.
long.
No. During this time he like police initially believed that this was kind of more of a robbery, and they believed
Yeah.
that he would survive after getting shot, so they weren't really investigating it quite as well as they could have. They just thought it was a random robbery.
Oh no.
They didn't at
Okay.
this point, like they weren't tying these shootings together, so they weren't like investigating kind of like a serial shooter or anything like that. That's not where their head was at.
Okay. I mean, there's
Yeah.
it's New York. I guess maybe there's
Yeah.
a lot of random
And there's different
shootings and stuff.
precincts. These are happening in different areas, so sometimes they're
Okay.
probably not even like communicating in the different
Yeah, I could
areas.
see that.
Um, but because of this victim's older age and he was described as senile, he couldn't really remember many of the details of the attack. But they also
Oh,
ended up finding a note at this particular scene, just like they did at the first one that had that one attached to the gun, saying this is the Zodiac. Um, so this one, from what I could figure out, it said this note or letter was described as cryptic and eerie, and at the top had a circle with three symbols. It read, "This is the zodiac. The 12 sign will die when the belts in the heaven are seen."
the
Which,
12 sign. The 12
yeah, the
sign.
The 12th sign will die when the belts in the heaven are seen, which like just weirded out investigators, I'd say. Like they're just
Very
like, what the
cryptic. I was like,
fuck?
ooh, cryptic. The
Yeah.
12th sign of the zodiac. No, but
Maybe.
Pisces is always last on the list. When it goes in order, it'll start with Aries. Like it doesn't
Mm.
start with Capricorn, which is January. It doesn't like follow the,
Yeah.
calendar year. And then it always ends with Pisces. We're the 12th sign in the zodiac.
Okay. That's
So we're
shitty.
gonna die. Great.
um yeah, so now they kind of figured out they have like two notes saying this is the zodiac. It's similar kind of
Hmm.
shootings, like just seems to be random. Both of them are happening at night, both with these weird notes. So investigators kind of figured out now this might be a serial case. There's at least two victims, and they thought that there could be many more victims to come. And initially they were fearing like another Son of Sam situation, like he also kind of just shot through New York randomly, like couples and cars and stuff
Okay.
too. Yeah, I think that was only a
Huh.
few years before this.
Oh, wow. So yeah, it would be in everyone's minds then.
Yeah, the next thing that happened in the case was that the offices of the New York Post, as well as 60 Minutes, like the television program 60 Minutes,
Yeah.
also received their own letters. They were written in the same handwriting as the notes that were sent to the police, or that they, I guess, found at the scenes.
Right.
And these notes that were sent to the New York Post and the 60 Minutes offices included the listing of the victims along with their zodiac signs.
Oh.
Yeah, so like it listed
Okay.
three victims, so that's how police went back and they like tied these three together like to the case. They weren't necessarily like I guess the middle one wasn't really being attached to it because there was no
Hmm.
note found there from what I could find, but
Yeah, with the
now it was
symbols and
definitely,
everything. Yeah.
yeah, now like they're owning up and saying these are my victims kind of thing, and it's being sent to like the press. So yeah, shit's kind of getting pressure. um
Huh.
One of the notes, which I think I found a couple of the notes. There's three of them I could find pictures of.
Okay.
I think this one, let me just check first. I put it on the drive for you. Oh, never mind. He used Faust in his own letter. You can tell I read it so clearly.
Oh,
Uh just
I
realizing that now.
forgot. It's been a few
It's
days since. Yeah.
it's picture one, like the first letter is this one. So
Okay.
yeah, it listed the victims along with their zodiac signs. One of them including May 31st, white old man with cane shot in front of house. And that
Okay,
was
descriptive.
Joseph Proche, because he was shot while he was walking near his house at 2 a.m.
Oh.
So yeah, like they now can tell. Um, Also listed were victims Mario Orozco and Jermaine Montenegro, which included in the note was the fact that no grooves could be found on the bullet that all three victims were shot with, which was a detail that only the
Hmm.
shooter would know. And this was because he was using like a zip gun. It's not wouldn't cause like marks in the shooting, like the bullet from the cartridge or like the barrel like normal guns do. Like there's no distinctive tool marks or
Um,
anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
those twisty parts inside the barrel or whatever.
Yeah, there was
Hmm.
none of that. So with these letters, like they probably want to leak them to the press and all that stuff, so the pressure on the police is a lot. They realized that the drawings on the letters of these circles that are on them coincide with the three astrological signs of the first three victims. And police
Ah.
are now worried that they're trying to hunt somebody that now has like three victims out of a presumable 12 that they're intending to
Oh,
shoot. Mm-hmm.
yeah. That would be a
Yeah.
worry, wouldn't it, if that's the pattern he's trying to establish. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, are we looking for like I can't math. we have three so far, so
Yeah, they're only a quarter of the way
um,
done.
right, so possible
Yeah.
nine bodies to find or to
Yeah.
get killed. Eh.
Yeah. There was an operation they ended up forming called Operation Watchdog,
Hmm.
whose sole purpose was identifying and catching this new Zodiac killer. They call him because he's like the legitimate Zodiac killer because he's doing it based on astrological signs. Um,
Yeah, that didn't seem like something that was in the first case.
yeah.
First killer.
Um, One thing with the case is just with the similar type of letters showing up to police and news, and then with the letters, some things said even the letters taking credit for some of the same victims. Like they started later on, like as he sends more letters, he starts taking credit for like the original Zodiac victims,
Okay,
which is
sir.
absolutely impossible. We'll get to it later, but yeah.
Figures. It sounds like
So
something a arrogant young guy would say.
yeah.
I don't know.
Um,
Yeah.
but for like at least at this point in the case, the New York police did consider the possibility that it could be the same person and that they may have relocated from San Francisco after the attacks in the late 1960s.
Well,
Um,
you'd have
and
to. I mean, they haven't caught the original.
Gordo, I've had enough of your shenanigans. Just tried to like knock my mic over.
But yeah, no, it makes sense. They can't just rule out somebody that
Yeah,
says they're the Zodiac because like you don't know how old that person was. They were never caught.
yeah.
So I believe.
Um, yeah, so they considered like this person uh could be the same person, that maybe they relocated and then for some reason had resumed their crimes after like 20 years of inactivity.
Maybe they had
And
a family or something. We don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
The original attacks had left 5 people dead and had injured another two. And they also had sent like these taunting coded kind of letters to police and media, which was kind of like what was happening here. So after some careful examination by a handwriting expert and then also talking to investigators from like the San Francisco crimes and getting those case files, they did determine that it was very unlikely to be the same person. Basically, they said like the handwriting like 100% ruled them out. It definitely wasn't the same person, even though they were kind of trying to take
Oh.
credit for it and using the same
Yeah.
name.
Well, they'd be the experts, I suppose.
Yeah. So police kind of with that tried to get evidence from the notes themselves. Um, but they ended up being left with no fingerprints as they believed the individual was most likely wearing gloves. And with that, they kind of instead shifted their focus on like analyzing the contents of the letters and what they were saying. They said that different letters that they had wrote talked about Orion, the Seven Sisters, and the Belt in the Heaven.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, police began diving into the occult, with one investigator trying to track down a book that was written by a dead English witch.
What?
Well, a different investigator was consulting a New York based warlock. Love it. It's like so,
Magnus
yeah.
Bane? Sorry. From the Shadowhunters?
I
The
wish.
sexiest warlock of all?
Yeah. Yeah, kind
Okay,
of
so like
great.
the an occultist and not an astronomist? Okay,
They
like
do get like an astronomist at some point.
I guess because like astrology was like almost a precursor to modern day.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it used to be more thought of on par with astrology, I guess, or astronomy
Yeah.
is what I'm trying to say. So
Yeah.
interesting. It's definitely he's leaning hard into that angle for sure.
Yeah. The investigators at this time, like investigating this kind of stuff, even earned the nicknames like Evil Desk while they were consulting astrological charts and all these dates. Like I just picture a very like
Okay.
crazy scene in their offices. Um I did
Red
get some
strings and birth charts and I
right.
don't know.
I did get one of the sources had some good quotes that I think are, yeah, just like quoted from the Catching Killers episode. So I have like some of those. This is from like a detective Larry Melancy, Melancy, who he was working on the case. I think he's the main one that ends up being kind of like going through the case on the episode.
Right,
Uh
because they talk to the actual detectives. Yeah, I was gonna say
yeah,
that if
which I
people haven't
love.
seen it, they get them to do the
Yeah.
interviews. It's very cool. Yeah, I
Like
like it
step
too.
by step, like day one, and this was like day two, and then we went this road, and then we tried this. I love that kind of
Exactly.
stuff.
Yeah, because we all feel like armchair detectives.
Yeah. So what he said was, quote, what we could see was a 21-day cycle being followed here. We found that the Parks Department had a very prestigious astronomer. He laid it
Oh,
out. We found that on March 8th, three specific constellations were visible at the time of the shooting. Seven
what?
Sisters, Taurus, and Orion, which
And
is
was
all one the three he referenced in the letter.
okay, so I'm sorry. I think I hear your Taurus in the background. No.
Yeah.
Was Taurus the first sign, the first victim of the first victim?
Uh
I guess
so
I could look at the little notes because you said it had the
yeah,
symbols.
so the first
Oh, okay, okay,
one,
okay.
see, this is how I told you there was conflicting information. I think for each of these, I found three different astrological signs for each of them, which is very
Was
confusing.
yeah, was
I
it
tried to like
okay. Sorry.
figure it out. So it sounds like the first one is a Scorpio, Mario Orsko. And then the
Oh,
next, Jermaine Montenegro was a Gemini, and then Joseph Prosh, he was a Taurus. As far as I could tell, again, each of them had like two or three attributed to them. One of the sources also said almost
okay.
every single one of them was a Gemini, and I was like, "Fuck you," making it very difficult.
No, I was just
So
gonna say that
I'm like, "What
the
does it say
note
in the letter?" I should have
in
looked at
the
that.
first picture, there's the three symbols in like a pie looking
Yeah,
graph.
that's what's
Yeah.
visible in the sky when he shoots them, not
Ah, okay.
yeah,
That
not
has the
what
Scorpio symbol. I just double
they
checked it. It
are.
looks like a little fancy
Yeah.
little M. Yeah. Okay, so that would be for the Mario guy.
Yeah, cuz he
Oh.
yeah, I think he draws like the same one.
It
Yeah, it
ironically
was a
looks
little
like a little M
confusing.
symbol. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um
Interesting.
yeah, so they're doing this. Yeah, so continuing his quote, it says March 29th, all three were visible again at the time of the shooting. And the next 21-day
Huh.
periods, the stars were not visible in the sky at the same time, no shooting. On May 31st, the third shooting at 2:04 a.m., all the stars were in the sky again, and there was a shooting.
Oh, okay, so every time
So
the right constellations
every time
whatever
these three
lined up.
constellations were like in the sky, one of the victims was shot.
Huh. That
So
is so
they
I mean,
that's
I
why I'm
want
like,
to like
Alana's gonna love this case because it's like right up her alley. I'm like, if she's never heard of it, it's gonna be the best true crime case.
I think he was just like, into the trends of all the new wave stuff before it was even
Yeah,
popular. He's like, this is going to be
yeah.
hot someday. You guys just wait. Then there's going to be a
Um,
crystal killer and possibly an essential oil killer. No.
yeah.
The tarot
Poison
card
you with
killer.
peppermint tea. No. Um.
I did the
Yeah. So
tea
they
lady.
ended
I
up.
did the toxic tea lady. That was from
Oh yeah,
Australia.
yeah. Yeah, so the next thing they did was have this astronomer that they were talking to outline the next like 21-day cycles, and they were told that on
Oh.
June 21st, 1990, that those three constellations would be visible between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. In the
Ooh.
episode, Detective Walensky says, quote, it had never been done before, where you were able to actually predict when a shooting was going to take place within a couple of hours.
Oh boy, that's a
End
lot of
quote.
pressure. But they're like
Yeah.
hoping that that'll be the break or something.
So the detectives were able to convince the chief of police to kind of blanket the streets of Brooklyn and Queens and police officers who would be, quote, hunting for anyone that looked like they could be, like, kind of on their way to, like, shoot anyone, acting suspicious, that kind of stuff. The night came
Okay.
and went. This 4 hour or 3 hour time span went, but there was no word. Nothing had
Really?
happened until they found out the next morning when the news came from a different district, Central Park.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, this is where it gets confusing because on his quote it said it was supposed to be on June 21st, but
Mm-hmm.
this everything I read said that this victim was killed on June 19th, 1990. So not sure. Uh but
Hmm.
this was Larry Param. He was 30, a homeless man. He was shot in the chest while he was asleep, I think on like a bench or something, after it was reported that
Oh,
someone had taken his wallet and checked his ID. And the bullet,
geez.
yeah, the
That's
bullet
rough.
ended up missing like his aorta and his heart and had exited through his right armpit. And he ended up surviving as well. Um, it's
Like,
as
holy
far as I
shit.
could determine, his zodiac sign was Cancer. Um,
Okay.
Again, these could be wrong because
But,
I tried to do it based on like the most credible sources, but yeah, there was so many.
huh. And they can't even
Um,
decide if he was killed in the right time frame. Like some sources differ.
yeah, and it was like,
That's
how
right.
hard is it for you to confirm somebody's fucking date of birth over here? Like, or
Yeah.
somebody's age. I
Yeah.
have ones where
Or if,
somebody's age is like 6 years different or something, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you can't even do the
well,
basic. It's
yeah, or
awful.
like you said, was he killed at the right time frame, or was it 2 days
Yeah.
before that date,
Yeah,
like on the
exactly.
19th or whatever?
Yeah, that's why
Okay.
it took me a little longer to like type up my notes because I was like bashing my head into a wall over frustration.
It's hard. I honestly sometimes I'm like, I wish I knew how to dig deeper and like
Yeah.
get the best sources, but sometimes you just yeah, you just have to wade through a ton of information and hope that you
Mm-hmm.
kind of glean the truth.
So after Param's shooting, there was a citywide task force, like because now he's covered like three different areas, Brooklyn's, Queens, and now Central Park. That's three different districts. So now it's like a
Oh wow.
city-wide task force. All the different districts and areas now have people
Shit.
involved. And the NYPD pool were putting all of their resources it could into catching the shooter. Around this time, the New York Post received another letter which contained the original zodiac symbol, like from the 1960s, as well as a list of
Oh.
victims. Um, I couldn't really make out if this was the like last victim or if it was the original Zodiac Killer's victims. And this is when they say like he's trying to take credit for like the original ones. It kind of seemed like that's what they meant in this letter. Um, And then again, the next 21-day cycle came. Police again tried canvassing the likely areas of attack, but nothing happened. And then the next cycle, nothing happened again. So, just as the
The heck?
public and investigators and the media were all waiting for the next shooting, eventually the city kind of returned to normal. The task force, with no new leads and nothing happening, ended up being like disbanded. And the lead investigators, Detective Molancy and Ciravalo, they ended up retiring, both of them.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, um, we cut to like over 2 years later when on August 4th, 1994,
Wow.
uh the New York, actually that would be 4 years, 4-ish years, yeah. The New
Really?
York Post received a letter from the Zodiac, and it contained a list of victims between the years 1992 and 1993. And these were all shootings that the police had been aware had happened but had not been connected to their Zodiac that they were hunting in the 1990s.
Oh
But they
no.
were aware
Just
like they had happened,
yeah.
at
But
least
not
to some
everyone had like a
degree.
note or whatever.
No, like there was no notes at the
Yeah.
scenes in these ones. But they ended up going back based on this letter. Again, he's kind of writing down a description, the date, like when they were shot, so they were able to go through
Yeah.
their like incident reports and find their victims. So starting in 1992, there was Patricia Fonte, who was 39. She had been shot twice with a 22 caliber zip gun, like homemade gun. Um,
Oh.
hers
Again
was
with the zip
actually,
gun.
yeah, hers is described as like kind of crazy. Because Fonte had, after she was shot, she ended up grabbing the shooter, and the two had a struggle. The shooter had panicked and began stabbing Fonte, and she was stabbed over 100 times. And
Oh
she did end
my
up dying.
God.
Yeah, she's
Sorry.
the only one that was stabbed ever. Um,
That is like the
yeah,
most
and that's because she kind of attacked
stab
him.
wounds.
Yeah. It said that
Wow.
her sign was a Leo, as far as I could determine. They also said that
Okay.
on June 4th, 1993, so almost a year later, James Jim Weber, or Weber, age 42, he was shot in the butt. Uh,
In
he,
the
there,
buttock.
we'll get back to it. Multiple people are shot in the butt.
Oh my God.
Just makes me think of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And like, fucking what's his face gets shot in the butt, and he
Okay.
has that butt cast. Um, yeah.
Wait, I've seen some Brooklyn
Charles.
Nine-Nine. No,
Yeah,
oh,
Charles.
okay.
He gets shot in the butt.
Little guy.
Um,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah.
don't want to have a cast around. Like, there's also when Meredith on The Office like breaks her pelvis, and she's like, "Sign
Oh
my
yeah.
cast, Jim." He's like, "Oh,
Oh,
okay."
gross.
I know, right? That's awkward.
Um, yeah. Yeah, so Jim, he ended up surviving. As far as I could tell, his sign was Gemini. Uh,
Oh.
Also in the note was July 20th, 1993, John Diacone, whose age was either 40 or 46. His was the most confusing. He was shot in the head at close range. He did die, and his astrological sign was either Cancer or Virgo or Leo. Because why not? Uh,
Okay, they're like he was born sometime between the months of June and September.
yeah, like it makes
Okay,
no
okay.
sense. I was like, fuck. By the end of this, I had two astrological signs for every single person, and every single person I narrowed it down other than John. He still had three written down between all my
What the
sources. And I was
heck?
like, "Oh my god, you
It's
guys can't even like figure out people's date of birth?"
yeah,
Like,
it's not like
yeah.
pre-written
Yeah,
like
it's the
history.
1990s.
Yeah, most
It's
people know like a
infuriating.
general birth date, if not,
Right?
like a
And it was
year.
like, it's fairly important
Or
for the
yeah.
case. He's called the Zodiac Killer. He's killing people based on their fucking zodiac
Exactly.
signs. And you can't even definitively say what any of his victims were.
A lot of us
Like,
want to know that. I
yeah.
I'll listen to podcasts where they're like, and this guy was at this. Oh, that's big, that energy.
Yeah.
Like, we need to know the sign. It's very important.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Um, so the next one he took credit for, like, because again, he's writing this in 1994, saying, I did these in 1992 and 1993. The last one in the note,
Okay.
or the second last one he says in the note, was October 2nd, 1993. This ended up being identified as Diane Ballard, age 40. She was shot in the neck, and the bullet had missed any vital arteries, but ended up being lodged against her spine.
Oh,
Again, same as
of
like one of the
course.
other ones.
Well, in
She
the
also
neck. I mean,
yeah. She did survive. From what I could
what
tell,
the
her sign
fuck?
was a Libra, and the killer listed their like last victim, and in the letter, their fifth victim for this letter, saying it was June 11th, 1994. But police were never able to identify this individual. They ended up conducting a thorough search of the park with cadaver dogs and helicopters. Um, and also going through the reported incidents, and they determined that this attack had likely never been reported. So they don't know who this individual is. They've never been like found. Um, yeah, so
Oh,
maybe they had gotten shot and like didn't report it, or it
jeez.
seems weird, like he had never made one of these cases up before, so it seems likely that there was somebody he shot, but they could never figure it out.
Right. Maybe for some reason they were wary to go to a hospital, so they didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something. At this point, like with this last letter, I believe 1994, there was no more of like these weird strange like pie shapes. There was no circles with crosses, that kind of stuff. And like the original zodiac symbols, all that stuff was gone. Instead, this
Okay.
letter, which is should be the third letter, number 3 in the drive.
Okay.
um
It's got like a bunch of like totem pole looking doodles
yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah. It's a my notes literally say instead the letter contained a strange totem pole code. That's how it was described. You were like so on. Um
Yeah. That was just kind of
yeah.
off the cuff. I don't know. That's funny.
And it also contained the phrase, quote, "Sleep my little dead, how we loathe them." Which that sounds
Yeah.
vaguely familiar, but I don't know what that's from. Uh
Yeah. Just
yeah. And
sounds
then
like
there was
someone trying to be creepy too. But
yeah,
yeah,
then there's
very.
also all these like little hand-drawn flags they're called. So from
Mm.
the what this is Detective Herbert. I think this quote was from the source, but it was from the Netflix one. I think he's one of the ones that like took over the investigation after the last guy retired. Um because he said, quote, "The flags put me off a little bit, but military people, Navy people, who recognize these flags to be maritime flags. They were able to break the
Oh.
code fairly quickly," Detective Herbert says. Continuing, when it's decoded, it says, "This is the Zodiac speaking. I am in control. There will be more. Yours truly."
What?
Yeah.
Wait a
Now it's like,
second. Is this Maritime
it's in the
Mysteries again?
Navy. It's in the Navy. Now we got maritime flags. I'm just like, this is a perfect episode
Weird.
for you.
They just I wouldn't have known they were flags ever.
Yeah,
Just like dots and
it doesn't
symbols
make
and
sense to me, but yeah.
I'd have been like, is this some sort of tribal thing I don't recognize from some culture
You
I
have
don't know?
to send it to Ressa and get her to translate it. She has to know it.
Right? Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to like know
Um
how to yeah, read Morse code and all that crap. Or
yeah.
speak it.
So
No.
with this like letter in 1994, it sent the city again into like a renewed state of panic. A second task force was formed. Police ended up finding a partial print from one of the letters, and they started to canvass, excuse you. Um they started to canvass areas around where the shootings happened, kind of drawing like circles around them to try and figure out overlapping areas where it might be like the home area or the most comfortable area of the killer, kind of like as they do.
Okay. Gordo's settling in to
And
hear the end of it.
yeah, the prints of about 4,500 people were and then compared to like the partial ones from the letter, but there was no luck. Like this person wasn't
Ugh,
in any database.
of course.
And after once again putting all this effort and everything, this new task force, and waiting on news for a new shooting, none ended up coming. And once again, the trail went cold. The city eventually moved on, and the task force was, for the second time, disbanded.
Wow.
Um, oh, this is my little bit on Detective Herbert that I just quoted, who was one of the task force supervisors and a trained hostage negotiator, had successfully completed his first task in the role of like hostage negotiator on June 18th, 1996. So like 2 years after the last letter. Um, he had successfully talked down a man named Eddie, who had shot his sister and then taken his sister's boyfriend hostage. Um,
Oh.
yeah. Detective Herbert says, quote, I was proud as a peacock that I didn't blow it because, they don't always go good, he says, and had returned to the scene when he was handed Eddie's written confession to the events. He goes on saying, quote, I'm reading it, and I'm reading it. I actually had a physical reaction. He had recognized the lettering and style. He says, my blood pressure went down like 40 or 50 points. I knew it was the handwriting from all the letters I had studied for the last 2 years working on the Zodiac case. The way he wrote his S's and T's and the way he had all these words underlined, I knew it in a second. Uh,
From so
so
this is the hostage
the guy
negotiation
that like
guy.
shot his sister and then like held his sister's boyfriend hostage is like being interrogated, and he writes out like his events, and he's like reading it going, this is like very familiar, like I've like studied your writing, like what the
Oh.
heck. Police obviously until that moment didn't realize, until this Eddie had handed over his handwritten statement to the police about this, like, I'm going to call it a fairly straightforward like family incident. Um at the end it was kind of signed
Sorry.
like with these three sevens as well as the zodiac cross, which like why the fuck did you throw that in, Eddie? Like just being an asshole. There's like these weird three
He,
sevens, I guess. I couldn't find a picture of it anywhere, but yeah, apparently he signed his confession statement about shooting his sister with this. And it's like, well, that's what you signed the zodiac letters with, you
oh
idiot.
my god. Yeah,
Um
he's just desperate. Like it's like they kind of want to be caught cuz they keep, they're not just staying under the radar like, "Oh, I'll just
yeah.
kill people close to me now because they haven't caught
Mhm.
me yet." And I'll be more
Yeah.
blatant about it. Ugh.
So just like that, obviously with one guy like recognizing his handwriting and then these obvious like doodles or signatures he's putting on it, he became like the number one suspect. Um,
Jeez.
which going into like Eddie, because his name isn't Eddie, Eddie's a nickname. Going into a little bit about him. Um, what was this? Oh, this is about the time of the last letter they received, March 10th, 1994. Heriberto Eddie Seda was arrested for possession of a deadly weapon after police noticed a suspicious bulge in his jacket pocket, and
Oh,
inside they found a zip gun.
oh my
Police took him
gosh.
into custody and determined that the weapon was not functional. It like wasn't a functioning even fake gun, and the gun was like taken into evidence, but it was incorrectly labeled at the forensic lab and therefore never sent to any sort of testing. And about this time, Sada's public defender was able to get all of these charges um, dropped, and Sada's arrest record was actually sealed. And because this happened, like his brief brush with the law and like being arrested and stuff, Seda ended up believing that because he got away like this time, that this was like a good omen, and it proved that he was kind of beyond any type of consequences. And kind of like renewed his faith that he in his mind he was doing the right thing.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
Uh
Okay.
yeah. Seda was born on July 31st, 1967 in New York City, which at the time of the Zodiac killings he would have been fucking like less than 10, so it's obviously not him. Uh
Yeah, yeah, but he obviously grew up hearing about it, that's for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
By 1993, at the age of only 26, Seda was an unemployed high school dropout living with his mother and his half sister.
Oh.
While he was in school, he had been described as a good student, but had been expelled at 16 after he brought a starter pistol to school. Um,
Great.
yeah. Yeah, he brought a starter pistol to school and he ended up shooting it.
Oh my god. No, that's a strong start. Starter pistol.
Yeah, I was like, what the heck? I feel like I've heard that in
uh,
another case before, but
it's like the
um
ones where they're like, Fast and the Furious, they're like gonna start the race, and then they're like, go! And they like
yeah,
fire it up in the air. Okay.
and like
Makes
track and
sense.
field events and stuff like that.
Okay,
Um
yeah.
yeah.
My only reference is Fast and the Furious. Come on now. Street racing.
Um since Seda was unemployed, he got his money by stealing coins from payphones and vending machines. Uh
Oh.
yeah, it's actually said that he would stuff plastic bags like into the coin slot with like just a little bit sticking out, and then when people put coins into it, it would kind of get stuck, and then he could pull the bags back out and it would like pull all the money out. And that's what he did every few days to get money because he didn't have a job. Yeah.
What? Oh my
Right?
god.
It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard, but
Ugh.
I
Yes,
mean,
if only you applied yourself to an actual
right? Yeah.
profession.
Um, Seda claimed to be deeply religious and attended church regularly. He never dated and kept mostly to himself. He
Shocker.
spent his he spent his free time reading magazines about guns and violence, as well as reading books about serial killers.
I
Yay!
mean, that I can get behind.
Yeah.
Read about whatever you
Um,
want.
it said that he idolized Ted Bundy and
Mm.
later like focused on the Zodiac killer after seeing a PBS documentary special about him
No.
or about them, sorry. Uh
Funded by
he
viewers like you.
Yeah, fucking PBS. I had to throw that in as soon as I saw one of the sources say it was a PBS special. Jesus. Um One source even said he even started a scrapbook about the Zodiac killer.
Oh. He's
I
just
thought that was like
trendy.
middle-aged women. I'm gonna start a scrapbook.
Yeah,
Um
your hobbies, bro, are weird. You should be
um
a middle-aged man smoking meats by now. Taking up, I don't know, whiskey
like
tasting.
overzealous about lawn care. Um
Yeah. Getting mad at the news, as Gloria would say.
yeah, so he has this like weird Zodiac killer scrapbook. And he viewed the Zodiac killer, I guess, as like a servant of God or like something, one of the sources said. It was a little strange. They didn't get
Oh.
very much into it. Um Seda, like by the time he's in his 20s, assembled like a small collection of explosives and ammunition. He also started to craft his own zip guns that he would later use. And then, like the original Zodiac killer, Seda did plan to like suddenly stop killing. Which is like what the Zodiac
Oh.
did. Like he just like suddenly stopped and then they never caught him. He did plan to like Seda planned to do this, which is basically what he did from June of 1990 to August of 1992, and then again after
Okay.
1993 to when he shot his sister in 1996.
Okay,
Like,
but you're like, that's not like the Zodiac then.
no, but he did have like these weird unexplained breaks that they have like no history for him for. They're like, we don't even know what he was doing during this time.
Right, but you know he wasn't
Um
dead because he came back.
Resurrected. No. Um it also said that he was like mentally and physically abusive towards his 17-year-old half sister,
Oh,
Gladys Chachi Reyes, um, who like lived with him and um the mom. And on June 18th, 1996, the time of like him shooting her, it was during a confrontation with her and her boyfriend Wilbur Rios, who was 23. Seda had pulled out a gun and began threatening the couple. The boyfriend had run and hid in the bedroom while Gladys had tried to run to the front door. And Seda had shot her in
oh.
the butt or the back while she was
As she
running.
was running. Wow.
Yeah, she was wounded but not incapacitated, and she was able to make
Okay,
her way to the
good.
neighbor's apartment. Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
okay. I'm glad
yeah,
she
she makes her
survived.
way.
Okay.
Yeah. She does call the police. A lot of police respond. 17 police officers arrive on scene, and then there's like a standoff between Seda and the police waiting outside. Some sources said it seemed like it was like hours, or implied it was hours, but one
Yeah.
source just said it was basically about an hour later. Seda and police over this hour or so had like exchanged fire back and forth, but nobody had ever hit each other. Like he shot at
Wow.
police, but had never hit any of the officers, and officers had shot at him. But no one was injured.
Sorry.
And
Yeah, just a
Seda,
bunch of stormtroopers. They can't hit anything.
pew 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 pew. Uh,
No!
Seda eventually gave up his firearms and then like basically gave himself up, and he was arrested at that point. So that's when he's like writing like all the letter, blah 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 blah.
Right.
Signs it stupidly as the Zodiac, and like, man, they'll never figure it out.
Yeah, it
Uh,
doesn't even try to disguise his handwriting or anything, or hadn't apparently for the
yeah,
previous
and
letters
it's
then.
stupid because I'm sure if he had done like a little bit better, they never would have caught him. Like he
Ugh,
was not on any
that's
radar.
scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
so glad they got that break, but like, yeah, that's tough.
yeah,
That's tough.
it's so like it just happened to line up that it was the right person, right hostage negotiator, the right person reading your arrest report that like knew what to
Right.
look for. Anybody else might not have like caught that. So,
Yeah. I mean, so like kudos to
yeah.
him for being like on the ball and stuff.
Yeah.
Because like
Um,
you're like, yeah, just one person has to miss that and just be like, oh
yeah.
yeah, whatever. It's nothing.
Uh, so immediately police zero in on Seda as their prime suspect. They still kind of have to like prove it's him more than like just drawing the symbols or similar handwriting.
Hmm.
Um, and despite what had been written in the letters about like you'll never catch me because I'm using improvised guns, police were actually able to eventually match tool marks between the shots fired as well as like his guns, or his like zip
Okay.
guns, I should say.
Yeah.
Fingerprints and palm prints were also taken, and they matched, and handwriting analysis determined a strong similarity between Seda's statement and the taunting letters that were sent to like police and like New York Times and stuff. Best of all, police ended up finding Seda's DNA on one of the stamps from the letters that he was mailed to the police, like directly.
Ooh,
So like,
icing on the
way
cake.
to go! Yeah, good old DNA.
Yes, that's not
Um,
circumstantial.
yeah, exactly. Being like, you licked that fucking stamp, dude.
Yeah.
Uh,
Explain that.
yeah. Seda targeted people at random, like mainly shooting them with his homemade 9mm or 22 caliber like zip guns. Patricia Fonte was the only victim who, apart from being shot, was stabbed as well. Again, like over 100 times. Um,
Yeah, that was so randomly out of character.
Yeah, it said that like she had attacked him. Like after he shot her, she had kind of like gone and was like attacking him physically, and he just like went crazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
dang.
Otherwise it probably wouldn't have happened, and she most
Oh,
likely would have lived because she had been like shot in the butt or back or something.
oh
So if
no,
she
should have
hadn't
just
have
like
attacked
played
him,
dead.
yeah, she probably would have
Oh,
lived, sadly. Um but in that situation you never know like what's gonna happen, so why not fight back?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
his first shootings were described as blitz attacks, but later some things said that he would like approach his victims under like false pretenses. It was originally believed his goal was to kill 12 people, one person for each zodiac sign, and on at least one occasion, or sorry, at least some occasions, it's believed he looked through victims' belongings for like some form of ID with like a date of birth on it. Like the one guy said after he was shot, like the guy was interested in his passport, and then like the other person,
Oh, wait,
um,
but that's dumb. You should
yeah,
just like stalk them beforehand so you know who's a what so that you can mark them off your list as you go.
yeah,
Otherwise,
it's a
you're just gonna
little
kill like
weird.
12 Geminis or whatever, and then you're like,
Yeah,
fuck! Now I gotta keep going because this random shit isn't working out.
yeah.
Man.
Um,
See Gordo. Okay.
oh, oh, he's over there now.
Yeah.
He's facing the wall. He put himself in timeout.
He's
Uh,
staring at the ghost. No, I'm just kidding. He's looking at your bookshelf.
so for like the trial, I guess, and stuff, Seda was just 23, like when he shot his first victims, which is crazy.
Wow.
Seda had made repeated disruptions and outbursts in court, even shouting at the judge, which, like, yeah, it's like what a loser. Uh,
Yeah, true.
and on June 24th, 1998, after a 6-week long trial with the testimony of 45 witnesses and 150 pieces of evidence, Seda was found guilty of 3 counts of murder and this is weird, of only 1 count of attempted murder. But, like, he shot all these people. That didn't really make
Huh.
sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Sometimes it depends
he,
what they feel like they can try and
yeah.
like at trial. I don't know. Hard to
He
say.
ended up being sentenced to a combined 232 years in prison. He got 83
Damn.
and a half years for his murders, as well as 152.5 years for all of the attempted murders, which,
Wow.
that's fun. Um,
Ugh. He's bad.
yeah, I mean, him in prison hasn't been much better. Weirdly, almost every source wants to mention that while in prison, Seda began a sexual affair with somebody named Cynthia China Blast, who was a transgender woman who was serving a sentence for a gang related murder and the murder of a child. It's like, that's fun. Like,
Damn.
that's who
Because
you're
even in prison,
gonna.
if you even like a child killer, you're looked down upon too. So I
Yeah,
don't
like
know.
that's. Yeah, that's a little bizarre.
Well, it's kind of
Uh,
besides the point too.
yeah. Uh, I found like he may have had contact with like New York Magazine in 2004. Because this said that in a piece that largely chronicled his romance with a fellow inmate as they both served time for murder in Attica, he said he, quote, didn't actually know anything about astrology. He also told the magazine that if he'd been
Okay.
armed with weapons stronger than a zip gun, his body count might have been higher, saying, quote, lucky for them it wasn't a real gun. Continuing, I would have shot them 20 times if I'd had an automatic. So, like, there you go.
Shit, I thought about that too, how it was like not a gun he purchased, not that it's like that hard to purchase a
Yeah.
gun in the US. It's kind of like I guess
Yeah.
neither here nor there, but maybe
Yeah,
that's
probably
true. Maybe
especially in
it
like
like
the 90s.
yeah, well that's the like I'm glad the the big automatic assault weapons and stuff are
Yeah.
banned here for people because what do
So
you need
scary.
that for? You don't need, yeah, something that can like pump out how many rounds per minute to like go deer
Yeah.
hunting. Like you just don't need it. And like I don't know. We
Yeah.
also don't have a lot of school shootings here, which is great, but I'm not saying it's only because of our gun control, you know. I'm sure there's
Yeah.
lots of factors, but damn, it's scary.
Um I have another little thing. As Detective Herbert says in Catching Killers, he was like the second investigator guy. That like hostage negotiator guy, said, quote, before Sada's arrest, he said, quote, in my heart that the Zodiac will come back and that he would shoot again and kill again, saying it was in his blood and it's the way he is. Which I thought was
Oh,
interesting.
the
Yeah.
original Zodiac he's talking?
No, I think like this guy, Seda.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's how he felt. Like before they had identified it as Seda. Um,
Mhm.
my
Yeah.
last few little things were little snippets that I didn't really know where to put anywhere else and were kind of contradictory or like one-offs that I couldn't really verify. Um, that includes that one of the reasons I really wanted to cover this case was because in the Catching Killers episode, the investigator himself says, and it ends the episode with this, that they never figured out how Seda actually figured out his victim's zodiac signs. And he says that in the episode that they never figured out how he did it. And then in
Oh.
multiple sources it says they never figured out. They literally end the episode with like he's Hui magical powers like told him. And that was like the investigator says this. And I was like, what the fuck? And then it wasn't until I started investigating that they're like, no, one of the victims said like he remembers them going for their passport and somebody remembers being asked oh yeah, like while most of his victims had different birthdays, only one survivor ever recalled being asked when their birthday was by a stranger, like or like their ID being taken or anything. Like
Yeah, and
only one victim
it's like kind
out
of
of
pre-social media. So,
yeah, so like there
um,
is like this
hmm.
kind of confusion around how he did figure it out, but I thought it was funny that in the Catching Killers series, the big investigator guy's like, "We never figured it out. It was magical." And it's
but
like, "What the fuck?"
but
And I was
like
like, "How?"
it doesn't sound like they were in an order of the zodiac.
No.
So did he just kill them and be like, "Okay, got that one off the list." You know what I mean? Like
I have no
random.
idea. I mean, like, damn it, got
And he just
another like Capricorn. Fuck.
well, that's what I'm saying.
Like,
Yeah, like how did he just
I have
not,
no
yeah,
idea.
exactly get
Yeah.
Leos in a row or whatever.
Yeah, it's
Crazy.
also yeah, so that's kind of weird. That's why I put this at the end because that's at the end of the episode, and I was sitting there dumbfounded, like,
Yeah.
what? What do you
Well,
mean you couldn't figure out how he got it? You're like
it's
saying he
not as
just like somehow
yeah,
knew?
but it's not as impressive as if he got all 12 in
Yeah.
the exact order without seemingly knowing their zodiac signs. Like,
Especially when like some sources said like 60% of them were Geminis. I was like, fuck sakes. It's like not
yeah,
all of
I
you could
know.
be a
I was like,
Gemini.
sources may
Um,
vary. Your mileage
yeah.
may differ.
Yeah. So a little bit of confusion there. Also weirdly, um all of the shootings took place on Thursdays. Every single one of them. All
Oh.
of them was on a Thursday. And I actually backed that up. I was kind of shocked. I found it said that was as per the New York Times. It's the only source I found it in, but I found a newspaper clipping about the case and it actually says, oh shoot, it might not be in the I don't think it got saved into that folder. I think it's in the wrong folder.
So he
Where did
clearly
it
had a
go?
thing for Thursdays.
Um, I don't know where it is now. I might have to find it again. It said in the article like every victim was shot on a 21-day cycle on a Thursday. I was like, wow. Um,
21-day cycle. The minute his
yeah.
girlfriend got her period, he went out the door.
It also said that like one source said that he targeted his victims because he thought they were evil. He told authorities that he got a feeling about them. This was according to the New York
What?
Times article.
Okay. As well
Um,
as they're the right zodiac sign.
yeah. It also said that he had never provided another motive. Like that source said that. But a different source was actually the Criminal Minds Wikipedia. Because
Hmm.
they've based a number of people in their episodes based on Seda, I guess, like different aspects of the case. Um,
Yeah.
his whole like page on the Criminal Minds Wikipedia starts with a quote say that says possible motive. He was quoted as saying, "I'm going to start killing because I'm not getting no sex." Which okay,
Deep.
yeah, and I never found that quote anywhere else, and like I was like, okay, would you like to elaborate? Like, where did you get this piece of information from? But
I'm an
yeah, it just said
incel
he
and
had.
I'm proud.
Yeah, basically.
Oh.
Yeah. But that's the end. That's everything I could find. It made my head hurt for like 2 weeks. I literally had to write out
Damn.
people like names and then I'm like, "Oh, their name's spelled differently here. Oh, this time they have a different last name. Oh,
Oh
this time their first
no.
name's different. Oh, this time their age is different. Oh, they ended up with 3 astrological signs. Oh, the date they were shot is totally different." And I was like, "This is
Damn.
brutal." I was like, "This is so
Yeah.
confusing." And the more and more case like sources I kept reading, the worse it got. Like there was just
Oh
so
no.
many one after another, and it
Yeah,
also
like a
sucked
game of
that I
telephone.
couldn't find. Yeah, 100%. It also sucked that I couldn't find a single picture of a single one of the victims. Um,
Yeah, that's always like it's disappointing.
yeah,
You try
none
and
of
find
them
more
even.
info, nothing.
Yeah, like I got like two sentences about each one, and that's it. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and then you're like, it sucks that you're like, I could die and people wouldn't even get my damn age right, you know? Like it's just it's
Yeah.
shitty. Yeah, it's shitty.
Like one of them said they were 40, then the next source said that same person was 46, and then one person ended up with three astrological signs, everybody else ended up with two. Like it's like this is a mess.
They're on the cusp. No, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like frick.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
But I thought you would enjoy it. It had a little bit of everything for true
Ups
crime.
and
And like
downs.
it had the zodiac, it had zodiac signs, it had the navy maritime flag, and
Yes.
astrology and
Cryptic notes.
warlocks. I was like, it's
It
great.
was
That's was like
titillating.
that's was like, have you heard of this case? And when you said no, I was like, this is gonna be fun.
I feel like it doesn't get a lot of coverage. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
like just ones like the Zodiac are
Yeah.
so classic and stuff that most people have heard of them. But unless you're a true crime aficionado, there's so many cases like these that just aren't known about.
Yeah.
So sorry, dude, you didn't get
100%.
your infamy so much as you wanted, but
Right? Yeah.
whatever. We're
Hmm.
retelling it to honor the victims, so fuck you.
Yeah.
But ugh, yeah, he had quite a few like, and then I'm glad some survived. Like, it was a mixed
Yeah,
bag.
all but what? Yeah, only three of them died out of like eight, I think he ended up shooting, other than his sister. They were all like throwing, they were like putting, always when they showed his sister, they were like putting her astrological sign. And I was like, well, she wasn't really part of it. There was a disagreement.
Oh,
Like,
he definitely knew
so.
her sign though. That's his half sister. You
I
better.
think the only thing I saw was like Gemini, and I was like, fucking Gemini again. Like, let's see that one more time.
Well,
Yeah.
they are the
It's like
twins. Winning.
everybody had like or Gemini like attached to their thing. And then eventually I was like, okay, I just gotta feel like whoever only has Gemini is a Gemini and nobody else is a Gemini.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, take a drink every time she says Gemini.
Right? There were so many. It was infuriating. But we will take a break and we'll be back for another copycat. I'm excited. I don't have to talk anymore. That was a long one. Sorry, guys.
All right, all right, all right. We are back. We are back for part two. Copycat
Yeah.
Killers. Mine's a little different, but that's okay. Um, I looked it up, and first listicle you know, pulled up. It was like 10 copycat killers or whatever,
You're
And
like, perfect.
yeah, exactly. I start looking at the little blurbs, kind of trying to get an idea. Okay, all right, interesting, interesting. And then like scroll past the guy, Zodiac Killer, Brooklyn. No, 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 no. And then
Yeah.
there's some that had to do with a couple of movies, and of course we're big movie buffs, so I gravitated towards one of
Yeah.
those.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, those ones are interesting too.
And there's a
I mean,
few of them.
if I hadn't have had this case picked out, I probably would have done something like that.
Yeah, if we do it again, like we could do
Yeah.
copycat movie killers because yeah, there's definitely another one I would do. Um
Okay.
Also because I was like, "Ooh, I like those movies too." Um but I didn't do that. That's the Scream movies, but maybe I'll do that someday. So,
Okay, I think I might have just like quickly heard about. that like something had happened, but not anything that I know
I
about. So,
I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know anything about this one, just the movie itself. Because this is the Copycat Killers of the Natural Born Killers movie, is what I did.
okay. There's been
So
a few of them by that movie that has Woody Harrelson in it. I've
apparently,
never seen it. I've never seen it. It's supposed to be really good.
oh
It's on my watch
really?
list.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it would be one. I haven't seen it in a while. Um, I remember watching it. I know my sister was always into cooler, edgier things than I was as a teenager. So like,
Oh, okay.
it's written by Quentin Tarantino. So like, I'm like, I bet she was the first one that got me to watch it. I don't remember, but I know
Okay.
I've seen it a while ago, and it's got people in it that I really like. But I'll give you a little rundown of the movie synopsis. So um, this is the main case that comes up when there's a Wikipedia page for Natural Born Killers, Copycat Killers. Um,
Yeah.
this
Because
is
I'm
the
like, there's
main
more than one.
attributed to
Yeah.
the movie. Yes,
Yeah.
unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
So, which kind of is why I said like mine's not super long, but it kind of does it provokes some discussion, I guess maybe about films and stuff
Okay.
like that. But I mean, we all have our own opinions on that. So, the pair, is this where I want to start? The pair that we're talking about that committed these crimes, met in Tahlequah. There's some fun place names in this. Oh, sorry, I just kind of have that at the beginning, which is a random place to put it. Okay, scratch that. Uh, this is a quote. The term copycat effect was coined after intense coverage of the Jack the Ripper murders spawned similar killings. That was from
Okay.
How Stuff Works, gave me that little nugget, as well as I think that's where I got the listicle of cases, which is
Not
kind of
bad.
weird.
Yeah. I like learning how stuff works. How's it made?
How Stuff
That's
Works,
what it's
how
called,
people kill.
right?
Yeah, how's it made? I
No,
like
how's
books
it
like
made? I used to that was the original like just like pleasing TikTok videos that I don't even watch of like
that. I
stuff.
want
It was just like
to,
how's it made?
yeah.
Just watching them slice crayon wax. You're just like, yes.
Very soothing, aesthetically
Or
pleasing.
pasta, like going through the coiler thing and then
This is
you're
like
like,
my stoner
yes.
fodder. Like get baked and like
Yeah.
turn on like Blue Planet or like Planet Earth or something too, and just watch that
Me, it was
shit.
like after school, it was like, how's it made? Mythbusters.
Oh
Um,
yes,
like
that used to be
Mayday,
pretty good. Yeah, yeah.
mystery diagnosis, so I could diagnose somebody with encephalitis. And then
Oh my god. Oh god. I think I was more there was more like Rescue 911 and other weird stuff I was watching too.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. I watched also quite a bit of like Cops. I liked that.
Oh my gosh.
Border Patrol's also fun. I like watching people get arrested for drugs.
I
It's
think I was
funny.
just talking about that one. Yeah. I don't remember. That's a good one for sure. People in
Like
them
not the
meet.
people that are like being blackmailed or like bad, like
No, it's
they're
the
trying to distribute
idiots.
drugs. It's the
Yeah.
idiots.
Yeah.
Like, it's not my drugs, officer.
I thought because I was trying to come into Canada that this would be easy.
Yeah.
No, we're hard asses.
Yeah.
Keep the
Anyway.
crazy out. Wait, look at our cousins to the south. I mean, we love them, but they're a little weird. Okay, so yes, most of us could definitely debate whether a movie could inspire some sort of madness, because after all, movies are meant to inspire and provoke, like any form of art, I guess. So a movie about like violence and how it's portrayed is definitely no exception.
Especially
Um,
a Quentin Tarantino movie. Fuck.
he wrote the screenplay, but we'll get to the who
Oh, okay, he didn't
directed
direct
it.
it.
No.
Okay.
Um,
There's
Yeah.
not like gratuitous foot shots. Women's feet everywhere every 5 minutes.
Foot shots? No, gratuitous violence, yes. Um, and of course, it wouldn't
You
be
don't
the
know the
first.
thing about Quentin Tarantino being obsessed with
Foot?
women's feet?
I don't
Like every
know. Do I have time
five
for a
fucking
foot
seconds.
tangent? That's funny.
Sorry.
No, no, no,
Look
it's
it
good.
up. It'll
I'll
come
have to
up
look it
very
up.
quickly on Google if you look up like Quentin Tarantino F. I'm pretty sure it'll say foot fetish.
Oh my god. You reminded me of something I was watching with Pat where the critical role people who were answering questions based on what the Google auto fills in about
No.
like
It's wild sometimes.
Laura
It's like,
Bailey. Who does Laura Bailey voice? And then they'd be like, "Oh, I voiced this person and that person." And then it was like
yeah.
It was like, "What happened to Taliesin Jaffe?" And he was like, "You know," like that was like the top Google thing for him. One of them, and he was like, my parents have asked me. I'm not sure." It was kind of funny. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Just like that. Is it BuzzFeed that does that? Where they have them answer
could
like the
be."
autocomplete interview or whatever they call them? Those are kind of fun. The
Yeah,
grammar is
that's
terrible.
fun.
They're
Yeah.
like, how? This sentence? How?
Um, okay, so like some articles pointed out that there's certainly movies that had scenes that were recreated that weren't great, like the Russian roulette scene in The Deer Hunter that apparently caused several accidental suicides. Not
Oh,
great, but
no.
um, and uh, a predecessor to the Natural Born Killers, A Clockwork Orange, which is
Ugh.
also known for
Hate that
being
movie.
pretty gory or at least violent, you know.
I stopped watching it like halfway through. I was like, why am I watching this?
I
Yeah.
know, probably one of those ones where you're like told that you gotta see it because it's one of those iconic ones, but you're like, wow, this
Those
is
are
a
the ones
lot.
I had it on split screen and I was pretty sure I was looking at something else and I still didn't even want to keep having it on split screen. And I was like, nah, no,
I
I've had
I
enough.
remember trying to read the book and it was like the jargon
No.
was too much. Everything was droobs and words that didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that's very annoying.
Oh, it was a lot. Okay. So this movie is based itself loosely on killings in the late 50s committed by teenagers Charles Starkweather and Carol Ann Fugate. Um,
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
I know it's actually based on its own true crime case. Again, I didn't know that either and
So
didn't
you're
really.
doing a copy of a copycat.
Well, I was gonna say, please don't say you're doing that one and then the other case because it's just like it's too much. But yeah, it's a copy. It's the whole art imitates life, imitates art. It's all a circle.
Wow. That's crazy.
Um, yeah, oh yeah, tried googling a little bit about their case, but it was hard to find too much that wasn't about specifically an upcoming documentary about them. Um,
Mm.
Probably a Netflix whatever, which I don't haven't watched, but would probably have biased me a lot. But basically,
Yeah.
I gathered they were like a couple that killed 11 people around Nebraska and Wyoming, including
Oh wow.
her family, the girl's family. Um, and she was like 14 and he was about 18, and so I think that played some influence in her getting a lighter sentence, whether she was
Hmm.
coerced or not by an older boyfriend.
Okay.
Um, if he did,
Yeah, your brain's less developed at 14 than somebody's at 18, so that's
yeah,
fair.
yeah, this is true. This is true. Um, I'm glad none of the older guys I dated was like, "Let's go kill your family," but I would have been like, "Nah, I'm
No
good."
thanks.
That's
I'll
not the kind of
pass.
thrill I'm looking for.
Yeah.
um, if he did like threaten her family, from what I read or whatever, like I can see how that would have put her in danger. But yeah, like I said, I didn't have time to deep dive in that one.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, the focus more on the case that came after the movie, which was most associated, which is the crimes of one Sarah Edmondson and Ben Darras. So, Ben and Sarah were known to have binge watched the movie Natural Born Killers while on acid the night of March 4th, 1995. So they had a fun
Oh,
night.
fuck.
It's okay. Do acid if you're gonna, but interesting choice of what movie to watch over and over again if you're gonna do that.
Yeah, that seems really shitty.
It's like setting yourself up to fail, maybe. No, I don't know. But like, I've watched very sad movies on mushrooms because mushrooms tend to make everything a little funnier, you know? Like you can kind of
Yeah.
like get past it. Like I watched The Crow, which is like the saddest fucking
That's
violent movies.
awful.
Hey, you know, it's a great movie too. But yeah, it's depressing. So you kind of got to watch it on mushrooms. All right. But yes, again, mine at the dates were a little weird too because some things said a couple days off. So I said,
Mm.
yeah, I think they watched the movie on the night of March 4th, and then the next day they seem to have set out and chose violence that day. Um,
Wow, that's quick.
yes, we'll get to it. Okay, so a little bit more on the movie because I tried to keep my notes as organized as possible, but you know, you're taking stuff down in chronological order and then you get read another article, then you try to piece it all back together in your ADHD brain and it's all over
Yes.
the place. Yeah. um so Natural Born Killers stars Woody Harrelson, Juliette Lewis, Tom Sizemore, Robert Downey Jr., Tommy Lee Jones, and Rodney Dangerfield. It was directed by Oliver Stone and it came out in 1994. And the generic Googled movie synopsis is Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis are two young, attractive serial killers who become tabloid TV darlings thanks to a sensationalistic press led by Robert Downey Jr. The press reports the pair as they go on a 52 people killing spree, a controversial look at the way the media portrays criminals. Yeah, they kill a lot in the movie, I guess.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that.
I forgot it was that many, even, yeah, just having done the notes, but thankfully, I'll just spoiler alert tell you that mine don't get to that many.
Yeah, that's good. Jeez. That's a
Right?
lot.
Like, no wonder it's called a little gratuitous and stuff, which, yeah, we'll get to. Um, The Guardian had a different take on it. It said, bankrolled by Time Warner, Natural Born Killers dispatches psycho lovebirds Mickey, Woody Harrelson, and Mallory, Juliette Lewis, on a murderous junk culture joyride. Along the way, it melds 35mm with Super 8 animation with back projection and stylized carnage with a thunderous rock soundtrack.
Girl, that sounds so right up my alley.
I was like, I love
I
the
I can picture
filmy
the movie
description of it.
poster. I can picture the movie poster because it's like Woody Harrelson's face and he's wearing sunglasses and like all that shit. And it's I think black and white, except for his sunglasses or something.
Probably. I know that, yeah,
Yeah.
I know you appreciate the aesthetic parts of it.
Yes. Them just mentioning camera size of 33 millimeters. I'm like, okay.
This is porn to you people. No. Apparently watching a movie with Quentin Tarantino is a real drag because like Kevin Smith got the opportunity to do it and he was writing about it in one of his books that I have. It's just like
Yeah.
autobiographies where he just like talks about how he's a normal person and he like goes to freaking fast food places and whatever, but like he's like, oh my god, he was just like, he wouldn't shut up about the, well, and then did you know that the guy had to fly in the flies for this spaghetti western movie and they had to fly them in from Italy and blah 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 blah. He just like never shuts
Well,
up.
yeah, that would be kind of annoying.
Sounds amazing. um so apparently, just to finish out that quote, the initial response was enthusiastic. The film sailed to the top of the US box office, with Variety dubbing it the most hallucinatory and anarchic is that how you say that? Like anarchy, but
Anarchaic, I think.
I would, but it doesn't have just the way it's spelled, it looks like anarchic. Picture made at a major Hollywood studio in the last 20 years. A psychedelic documentary on the American cult of sex, violence, and celebrity. So, woo. It was a little bit more of a flowery description, but there's nothing um, fancy about their crimes, of course. They were only 18, and when they watched this movie, they had just spent the night at her family's cabin in Muskogee. I was like, these pronunciations, I'm gonna maybe have to look up, but then I just wung it. So, in Muskogee, Oklahoma. Most sources say that they head out the very next day on March 5th, packing up her Nissan Maxima and heading out towards Memphis. They were hoping to catch the Grateful Dead concert that was coming up. So they loaded up with everything they might need for such an endeavor, like blankets, snacks, whatever, a revolver, everything.
Gun, my
Extra
socks.
pair of underwear. We used to tease our friend Billy Joe because to go out for the weekend, the only thing he would take was like an extra pair of underwear tucked in his pocket. He traveled light.
Jesus.
Oh, yes. They set out on their journey to go see the concert. The only problem was the concert had happened the previous week, so they had in fact missed it.
Wow.
Seems like such a I don't know, real stoner move. I don't know. That's you got to be really unprepared.
I feel like I might actually know this case.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, like I think Crimes and Consequences did it be in their like patron episodes, not the public one. I think they did might have covered this. It sounds like just a couple points sound familiar.
Yes,
So I'll
that
have to
happens to
keep
me
seeing.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're listening to something, you're like, wait a minute, I know what happens next, or whatever. Like all of a
Yeah,
sudden
just
it
from
just
like
dawns
one
on you.
quote or like one sentence, you're like, I knew it.
Exactly. So they passed through Hernando, Mississippi, and there they decided they were determined to have some fun. So they stopped off at a place called Producer's Gin of Hernando Inc., which was managed by a man named Bill Savage. I don't know also if this is just like a producer's gin, like a what am I trying to say? Not a distillery. I don't know, like a winery or somewhere. We went somewhere where you could go get tastings, but it made like beer and stuff. So like I don't know if it's like a place where you go and you can do like tastings, but they stopped off at this gin place where this guy was. Yeah. And they shot him twice, point blank in the head.
Oh wow.
Yep, right out the gate, I guess. Didn't
Yeah,
seem to.
I wasn't
He didn't
expecting
do
that.
anything to them that I know of. Yeah.
Wow.
Um, Ben then took a token from the murder, like a swatch of blood-soaked fabric, which ew.
Yeah. What the
And then
heck? That's gross.
yeah, I guess he did that one on his own, but then he told his girlfriend all the gory details, and she was all like, "Hey, I'm into it." So then they continue on their way. Um, I don't know. The details, like, yeah, are fuzzy on this one too, but they next hit up a place called Ponchatoula, Louisiana, which I'm hoping that's how that one's said because that one's pretty much how it's spelled. So, um, yeah, and this time Sarah's going to take her turn at taking a life. So they end up at a convenience store, the Time Saver, where poor 35-year-old Patsy Byers was the cashier that evening. Sarah shot her in the neck.
Jeez. Yeah,
Which
that'd be pretty like shitty. That's scary.
it is, but just like your case, she managed to survive somehow with the bullet lodged in there. But
Wow.
unfortunately, she was rendered a complete quadriplegic. So I kept
Wow.
wondering that when I was listening to your case. I was like, oh my God, are these people
Yeah,
like
like
fucked up?
I'm sure like they have problems.
You would think. There's gotta be,
Like, but
yeah, it
yeah,
sucks.
fortunately there was just like no information, which
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think there's fewer victims, so maybe it's easier, but thank God. Um, they, I guess, left the store briefly, but then they just like quickly returned for all the cash in the place and then fled again.
Like,
So,
oh yeah, we forgot to rob it.
yeah, like while we're at it, maybe we should do that. Like, obviously, that wasn't even their point. They're just
Yeah.
doing it with
Ugh.
like no seeming motivation other than they think
Yeah.
they're cool. Um,
That's awful.
yeah, so now they just remain on the run for several weeks. They didn't want to return to their home state of
Mm.
Oklahoma. And also at this point, Sarah's face had been captured on CCTV at the convenience store. So
Oh, okay. So they had identified her. They knew her name and everything.
they had her face at this point, yes.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, my next one is that police had her image, but were having trouble identifying her until her
Mm.
ex boyfriend recognizes her face. And,
Wah,
just always be
wah.
nice to your exes, people. Because you never know when they're going to identify you to the police. Um,
I always said she was crazy. I was out there murdering people. You guys didn't believe me.
yeah, the scary part is you like listen to a case and then the cops come to the door and the girlfriend or the spouse or whatever is like, oh yeah, no, that could probably be them. Like he's terrifying, and you're like, oh great, that's what you
Yeah,
want. You're
fuck.
supposed to say, yeah, he's totally capable of that. Yeah, police tracked Sarah down to her parents' home where Jim and Suzanne Edmondson, her parents, were home. They said that she was not home, but the police also had a warrant, so the police were like, okay, we're gonna hang out here until she is. Um, and then they asked Jim if he owned a gun, to which he said yes. I keep it at the cabin. It's a 38 caliber revolver. And they were like,
Mm,
dun, dun, dun. So the cops
the
go and retrieve
gun.
it. Yeah. They both went for the gun, the gun, the gun. No.
I
um,
finally watched that the other day.
I still haven't. I just
Never.
know that from references. It's
Oh
Hamilton, right?
no, it's
Wait,
Chicago.
really? Oh shit.
Yeah.
See, I just heard people talking about like fucking musicals, and I was like,
I really enjoyed it. Oh my god. I think after I finished watching it, I
okay.
rewatched like all the musical numbers. Like immediately. It was just like, oh my god, this is so fun. Like,
There you go. It's been
I
on
don't know.
Broadway for
Some
years, I think. I mean,
yeah, like some of the reviews, like I watched the movie one, like with
okay.
Kevin Zellweger and I
Oh.
think Renee Zellweger and
Oh, okay,
other
yeah.
people. I can't remember. Yeah.
I was
Um
like, wait,
and
who?
some of the reviews were people saying like they didn't like the movie, but I thought it was good. Having like no expectations other than knowing it was a musical. Like,
Sometimes people just don't like Renee Zellweger. Which,
yeah.
whatever.
I
She's Bridget
enjoyed. It was good.
Jones.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So many things.
Mhm.
Oh no. I was gonna tell you too. I won't get on too much of a tangent, but I did finish 1899, and I was like,
So
okay. I
you
was like
know why
that.
season 2 would have been totally different than season 1.
I remembered you kept saying something about it wasn't renewed, and yeah, and I was like, okay, okay, and then I was like,
It's like, God
oh,
damn it, I want to know.
they were on a ship. Um. Okay. So, yeah, shortly after the cops get the gun, then Sarah gets home. Her parents passed her right over to the police, and apparently her father even was the one that read her Miranda rights. Fun fact.
Pretty
Um,
sure that's not legal, but okay.
sounds weird a little. But then another thing I read said that her, I don't know if this makes it better, I guess, but like her people in her family were all in all sorts of public service and like law enforcement, where it was like her grandpa was a US congressman, her great uncle was a governor of Oklahoma and a US senator. Her uncle Drew was the Oklahoma attorney general at the time, and her dad was a Muskogee County District Court judge. Yeah, that probably makes
Oh
it
wow.
worse, doesn't it? You're like, you're a judge, you're not a cop. But still, yeah, look at her family. It was like,
Oh, she just hates authority and like is hard rebelling and it's like, I'm gonna murder
right?
people.
It's hard not to think
Wow.
that, yeah. It's like the minister's daughter or something.
Yeah, the worst
Oh,
one.
and nowadays, her dad's a justice of the Oklahoma Supreme Court. Just no big deal.
Wow. Well, I mean, they were also on drugs when they came up with this idea, so that's also terrible.
It's
Like, you
all
can't really be like, oh, it's all bad parenting. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, they had this
no,
idea when they were on drugs. Like,
no, but it's interesting how the sentencing plays out.
mm,
So they almost immediately turned on each other, which I was like, so much for true romance, which incidentally is
they're
my favorite.
teenagers.
My favorite Tarantino film. True Romance. That's good.
Have not seen it.
It's yeah. It also has some violence, but some cute romance and Patricia Arquette and young hot Christian Slater. So it's worth a peep. um. So yeah. Ben blamed Sarah and vice versa. They weren't taking the full blame. They were both extradited to Louisiana, where they faced robbery and attempted murder charges for the shooting of Patsy Byers. And then Sarah was held on a big bond, $1 million to be exact.
Holy. Well, I guess if she's got like famous relatives, they could have forked over money. So
Right?
that's good.
Yeah, she obviously like comes from like old money. They've been in the place for a
Yeah.
while. It reminds me like the Murdoch murders, where like his family was
Yeah.
fucking,
Just buy people off.
attorneys
That's right. Like judges
forever.
and congressmen and shit. They could have
Yeah.
buried it. Ooh.
And not because like necessarily they were like smart, but more because they're like, well, my
Yeah.
dad was this, so then I decided to be this. But um, Ben's bond was sitting at only half of that, which is still $500,000. But so yeah, they weren't going anywhere. Um, then Sarah's attorney contacts Hernando authorities and said that she had information about Bill Savage's murder, which was still unsolved at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, so at first I was like, wait, what? But it was like, no, they only had them for the Patsy Byers thing with the the convenience store, where
Yeah, the
they can call
footage.
it attempted murder,
Yeah.
but she didn't die. So, but now they're
Okay.
like, okay, yeah. She's like, okay, I'll tell them about Bill Savage. And then she threw him so far into the bus that he came out the other side and just slid into the ditch. She
I
blamed
love it.
she blamed Ben for getting infatuated with recreating the natural born killer's killing spree. She said that when he took the gun from her father's cabin, she was just terrified and went with him out of fear.
And
Yeah,
then after I saw him kill the first guy, I was like, my turn, because I'm so afraid.
I know. There's only so much I can do to make me sound unbiased with some of these things.
Yeah, but like, how do
Yeah.
you look on the footage? Do you look scared?
Right, exactly. Yeah. And all the
Yeah.
other acts you did, like, it's your family's gun from the cabin. Who would have known where that was? Like, you.
Yeah.
um, so Ben was charged with the murder of Bill Savage. He pleaded guilty for the armed robbery also. He got 35 years for the robbery charge. I think that's because Patsy was so grievously injured during the armed robbery incident.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because that's like 35 years for armed
That was like
robbery.
with like attempted murder, like robbery with a weapon or something. I can't
Maybe.
imagine that was just like
Right.
robbery
Like
with a
for her
lot.
charges, I have it a little bit more broken down, but for that one, I kind of had less detail.
Hmm.
Um, but okay, so that was just the first charge of his before they then did like release him from the jail he was awaiting trial in, the Tangabahoa Parish Jail, before he could be moved back to the state where Bill Savage was killed, Mississippi. So then they tried him there for that one. Sorry,
Okay.
it's a little confusing. But that at that point he received life in prison for murder with no possibility of parole.
Hmm.
So that's like you got 35 years for the first one and now you have life with no parole.
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah. And then Sarah got attempted second degree murder for shooting Patsy. Um yeah, so this one she was the one more involved in. Uh, so yeah, it was second degree murder, armed robbery, and illegal use of a firearm in a violent crime, for which she received a 30-year sentence. Um, so initially it was similar to his, I guess, but because no
Yeah.
murder, I guess it was a little less. I don't know. But she was actually paroled after 11 years in 2010. So
Hmm.
she out now. And then her like post parole ends in 2025, so she'll be like a regular citizen again.
Hmm. Well, you said what she wasn't involved in the first one?
I mean, I
Like
don't
she
think
wasn't there or
physically
she
had
was in
anything
the
to do with
car?
pulling the trigger or anything, no. But like
Okay.
she was there, you know?
Okay.
Yeah. So
They
it's a
should have
little
gotten her for like fucking conspiracy to commit murder or some shit then.
to me it seems a little disproportionate to one another
Yeah.
because she had they were both there for both crime spree and both shot someone. The person she shot didn't die and then like, you know what I mean? So it seems like her hers is less, but then it's also like she's got all those connections, so you like wonder too, right? I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah. Seems like something went on there.
Well, and like, yeah, it's like think about it nowadays. She was paroled after 11 years, didn't serve her full sentence, and now he's still serving his life sentence at the Mississippi State Penitentiary at Parchman. Not that I'm saying either of them is, you know, innocent, but he also attempted to procure a pardon in a letter to the Mississippi governor's office, uh, which how did I word that so badly? He tried to procure a pardon. He wrote a letter to the Mississippi governor's office um, to trying to explain how he was a changed man. He also earned a bachelor's degree in Christian ministry from the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary and now tutors for their Parchman extension. So he's got all reborn Christian, I guess.
Ugh. Right.
um,
I
and
guess
then
if you have nothing better to read in prison than the Bible, tends to happen.
yeah, hopefully he has changed for the better, right? That's all I can say.
Yeah. I don't know. I find it weird because, like, his shooting, it was the first one, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, the second one is worse because you guys fully understand at that point the cause and effect of firing that gun. Somebody already died. Like,
Yeah,
so the
yeah.
second one I feel like is definitely worse. So it's weird that like yeah, he's sentenced harsher for the first one than she's sentenced harsher for the second
When
one. Like
they,
she should be
yeah,
sentenced worse for the second one, even though the person like didn't die because
or at
like
least
yeah,
just
you
like
fucking know like
treated
somebody's already dead.
equally. Yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah,
you both obviously knew the consequences of your actions, and even more so
yeah.
after the
At
first
that
one.
point,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You could have been like, "Oh shit, we're dumb. Like, why did we decide to do this? Like, this is
Yeah, and
crazy.
that's
Like,
not what they did. It got
no.
even more like, let's do another one thing, which makes the second
Yeah.
one, I think, like very bad, if not worse.
Right. Like, you're certainly still egging each other on. You're both
Yeah.
in it.
Jeez.
Um, but that's not all, of course. That was only 3 pages, Kelsey. What the hell? I have a little bit more information. I'm going to hit you with a sort of fun fact before some more very unfun information. Just a little
Okay.
sandwich of fun.
Whiplash. In
Well,
order.
turns out that Bill Savage was friends with a very famous author, John Grisham.
Oh
Was
God.
a friend of
Thanks.
the victim. Well, I know him.
I know
I've
you've
read
hit
a
it.
lot
Yeah.
of it, his books. Yeah, yeah.
I've never read a John Grisham book, but
Well, I just wasn't expecting that to come into play. I was just like, oh, okay,
yeah, that is a little
random.
crazy. Yeah.
Yes, author of legal thrillers like Runaway Jury, A Time to Kill, The Firm, The Pelican Brief. And he was just very good friends with this William Bill Savage guy. So he was
Hmm.
very upset, understandably, when Bill was killed. I mean, it's your friend, I get it. Um, Bill was killed. Kill Bill.
Kill
I
Bill.
tried to make a joke, but then
Volume
I, yeah, I was like, I wrote it in, but
volume
it's stupid.
something. Volume 4.
We
Well, if
finally
there's
watched it
3
with
of them.
Rain. She liked it. Yeah, volume 4.
And you didn't understand all the gratuitous foot shots? There's like 5 minutes of um what's her name? Like trying to open a fucking car door with her foot, just going move your big toe for like 7 minutes.
Oh, well, she's been in a coma for a long time. I'm always reeling at that point from the fact that she's been raped multiple times while she's in a coma. I was like, "Fuck
Yeah,
you." What's his name? Chuck? No, my
I can't
name
remember.
is Chuck. And I like to fuck. Yeah, fuck him.
Yeah, there's
Gratuitous
just
foot
so much about
shots.
feet in all of his movies.
Well, these are things I
There's
don't.
montages you can watch on YouTube
So I can
about
never
all the foot
actually be a
shots.
movie podcaster because I don't notice anything you know, informative or like couldn't yeah, make a good whatever. The themes on this, I'm like, no, it had this guy and he took his shirt off. I don't know. Okay. So yeah, it's not so fun and it's just a lot of not so fun things that came out of this. Just a lot of lovely public debates. So John Grisham
Okay.
kind of accuses Oliver Stone for making a movie that was, in his opinion, an obvious causal link between the film and their motivations to kill these two victims.
I
Um,
mean, that could happen with any movie where somebody shoots somebody else if you watch it while you're on acid. Like,
this is, I'm of the
like
opinion
I'm
that
pretty
you
sure.
can't help people that are going to be idiots anyway. Like,
Yeah. And if you kept watching it over and over and over, like,
yeah, red flag number
yeah,
one
that's
for
not,
sure.
yeah, that's not good for, like, any movie.
No, but also like not
Like,
the filmmaker's fault or his point, I think. But yeah,
mm,
exactly. Um yeah, and like I was saying, like he's obviously biased in this instant because it's his friend that was killed. But it's
mm-hmm.
definitely an age-old kind of debate with the yeah, this case is very art imitates life, imitates art.
Yeah,
Um
that's so weird. I didn't know that was based on a true story or like inspired
yeah,
by.
true. Yeah.
Weird. Hmm.
Natural true killers. No. Um, and then you look at like Tarantino and like a lot of the stuff he writes and directs is super violent and like you don't hear
Yeah.
about oh well you caused all these you just don't necessarily hear that he's caused all these crimes but maybe from what I read that Stone was maybe an easier scapegoat. He was seen as a hypocrite by some uh quote a rich kid who volunteered for Vietnam and then made Oscar winning films Platoon, Born on the 4th of July, lambasting the war. A peace-loving Buddhist who freely admitted that movie violence was cool. His film, too, was derided as hypocrisy in action, a supposed satire on screen violence that wallowed in 2 hours of stylized atrocity and then berated the viewer for getting off on it. Thus, the director found himself cast as a wicked Svengali with natural born killers his murderous instruction manual. See, I can't write that kind of shit.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Too insightful.
I'm pretty
No.
sure there was so many commas in that whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, no punctuation, commas only.
I know. I hate those really long sentences.
Yep.
Okay, so although it wasn't the only case that was associated with this movie, I'm just going to finish up telling you about the implications of this case before I mention a few others that were attributed to the.
Yeah, I think one of the other ones is the one I was thinking of.
Oh, okay.
Like, it's. But I think it was like only like offhandedly, kind of like, yeah, it might have been this or something. It wasn't like
Yes,
as much as like they were watching the movie over and over again, kind of thing.
exactly. That's why I think this is the
Yeah.
main one that is, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
attributed to it. Um, yeah, so after the criminal trial in July 1995, Byers sued the criminal couple as well as the Time Warner Company that put out the movie and director Oliver Stone. Um, it was obviously a civil case, and she filed a product liability claim with the help and advice of, lawyer turned writer extraordinaire John Grisham. uh,
Jeez.
it basically says that the filmmakers knew or should have known that the film would cause and inspire people to commit crimes such as the shooting of Patsy Ann Byers. So it's interesting that it's something they can sue for, but it's the
Yeah,
US.
that's a little strange. I don't really agree with that.
To me, it does seem a stretch, but that, yeah.
Yeah, like there's a lot of movies out there that you could say that about,
Hmm.
but
Violent video
yeah.
games, they're always trying to blame them for stuff. Yeah. Um,
See, like a video game's at least a little different because you're at least playing the character, you're choosing the actions. You
yeah,
know, like a movie, you're just sitting there as a viewer.
that's
Like, you're
true.
not really
Subjected to.
participating in it. But
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
It breaks my brain. I'm like, I can't. Like, yeah, it's a lot to think about. So Grisham went on to write an article called Unnatural Killers in the April 1996 edition of Oxford American Magazine. You like that? He said, "The last hope of imposing some sense on Hollywood will come through another great American tradition, the lawsuit." Which I'm like, yes, it's some great American tradition.
I'll sue you for anything.
That's what you guys are. You're so litigious down there.
Yeah.
Um, a case can be made that there exists a direct causal link between natural born killers and the death of Bill Savage. It will take only one large verdict against the likes of Oliver Stone, and then the party will be over. End quote. So he was a bit of a party pooper there. Um,
But like,
but
what did Quentin Tarantino's original screenplay look like? Why aren't you suing him?
yes, yeah, I know. They
Because
got Time
screenplays
Warner
normally
in there.
describe what the shots are supposed to look like and what's going to be happening to set them up and everything. So like,
The director just
we'll take it
interprets
out on the
it. Yeah,
director.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if it wasn't all him. Jeez.
Um, so on January 23rd, 1997, the case was dismissed on the grounds that the filmmakers slash production companies are protected by the First Amendment, which I believe is the freedom of speech or whatever.
Yeah.
Because we know way more about American freaking government than we would like to in Canada. But
Yeah.
um, you guys know nothing about us. It's fine. It's fine. We're okay. You're just louder about it. No, but
Yeah.
um so as far as that goes, Patsy appealed, and although the Intermediate Louisiana Court of Appeals overturned that decision, by this point she had actually died from cancer in late 1997. Um,
Aw.
Yet it kind of kept going for a while. On March 12th, 2001, Judge Robert Morrison dismissed the case on grounds that there was no evidence they wanted to incite violence. And finally, in June 2002, the Louisiana Court of Appeal turned down one final appeal from her lawyers, and the suit was closed. So that
Hmm.
was that on that. However, according to the Wikipedia page, and other sources would claim that there was like maybe about 8 usually crimes they would say that were associated with the Natural Born Killers movie itself.
Which
um
is more than one would want.
it's not a low number as far as killings that
Yeah.
you want. There was the Wikipedia page has more, arguably a lot more, which
Oh,
I was just like, this is why I'm glad yours was a very direct copycat killer, whereas mine, they're not all something you could say is so
yeah.
directly attributed to it. So get this, some of the other copycat crimes. The Frontier Middle School shooting. On February 2nd, 1996, in Moses Lake, Washington, a 14-year-old shot up his algebra class with a 30-30 caliber hunting rifle and 2 handguns, killing 2 students and his teacher.
Wow.
So it's a school shooting that just happened after the movie came out, but probably one of the first ones that we can remember hearing about, because it's before Columbine, which,
Okay.
yes. So the next one was the Heath High School shooting on December 1st, 97 in West Paducah, Kentucky, where another 14-year-old went to school with 4 guns and opened fire at a prayer meeting, where he killed 3 and wounded 5.
That's also people that just should not have been allowed to see this movie.
It's
Like 14-year-old boys clearly should not have witnessed this movie.
and I'm sure, well, it was
Like,
probably PG-13. I don't know. I don't know. All I know, afterwards they sued like everybody for that one. Oliver Stone, Time Warner,
yeah.
like all everybody
Mm.
involved with the movie. I was reading, I was like, holy fuck. But get this, the next one they associate with it is probably the school shooting we all know best, fucking Columbine High School shooting in
Wow.
April 1999. And I was like, wait, those other 2 were before this one? Because like this is definitely the first one most people remember hearing about. Um,
Yeah. I don't know much about any of them, so
no. Well, that's the unfortunate thing is, yeah, even after Michael Moore made documentaries about Columbine, it's like they're still happening to this frickin' day, and like almost more
yeah.
frequently, you would seem. And yet
Oh
nobody's
yeah.
put out more Natural Born Killers 2 or anything like, you know.
Yeah.
Um, they've also blamed the Richardson family murders on this movie. Those happened in April 2006, where a Jeremy Allen Steinke and his girlfriend Jasmine Richardson murdered her parents, Mark and Deborah, and her 8-year-old brother. And guess where that one was? It's not too far from here. Medicine Hat, Alberta.
That one, the last name sounds familiar.
Steinke.
Yeah.
Well, it's Gord Steinke. I think he's a global news reporter here too in Edmonton. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, then the Dawson College shooting, Westmount, Montreal, in Quebec, where Kim Veer
Oh,
Gill
really?
shot up his school. Yeah, another Canadian one. Um,
Damn. We
this
shouldn't
is
be
all,
allowed to watch the movie either.
and again, it's there's like just the tiniest little blurbs on these ones, and they're not showing exactly how it's super linked to them. So I'm like, take it with a grain of salt. Like I don't know.
Yeah, because sometimes people, it's like, oh, yeah, it'll say like, this serial killer might have been inspired by this, and it's like a list of like
Yeah,
15 things, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, he watched this movie when he was growing up, but also this book you read. Yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
wow.
You watched a PBS documentary about the Zodiac.
I just like kept looking through it like, what? How can this many be like claimed to be inspired by the movie? It basically went on and was like, other incidents in the 90s. A 17-year-old who killed his stepmom and sister, he had shaved his head and was wearing sunglasses like the Mickey character.
Hmm.
So that one I was like, okay, I see the more obvious connection. Um, and then a case in Georgia, which happened on the exact same date as the main case I covered, March 5th, 95.
Oh, creepy.
And it was a 15-year-old Jason Lewis killed his parents. Another one in Massachusetts in June 95, where a 65-year-old man was stabbed to death with 27 stabs from a Bowie knife. Which was like, oh, and it doesn't, I don't know, that fits the picture, but and then a January 1997 killing of a New York firefighter named James Halverson, who was running on a high school track and was shot down in cold blood.
Hmm.
Um, and then
I
it
think some of
just,
them it's probably just interrogating the suspects, being like, well, especially like younger
yeah,
kids, you'd probably be like, what video games have you been playing? What have you been watching recently? And if they say they watched the movie, they're like, oh, there it is. Like,
it's got to be something,
and
right? I
that's
mean,
probably all it
obviously,
takes. In
yeah,
like some of the cases, that's probably all it took for them to be like, it was inspired by that movie.
yeah. I mean, these
Like,
guys like watched it the night before. They never were like, "Oh, I'm
yeah.
trying to be Mickey and Mallory," you know? Yeah. So I get what you're saying. It's a very tangential, it's a very thin
Yeah.
link. Yeah. And there was a couple in 2000s. They also were like, "Oh, this guy in 2001 got kicked out of a bar for harassing women. Went home, gave himself a mohawk, and returned to shoot the bar up and killed 2 people and wounded 16 others." Um,
Hmm.
and then the other one who was watching the movie just before was in 2008 in July in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where Eric Tavulares stopped. He was been watching the movie for like the umpteenth time, and then he went to bed in the middle of it. Like he and his girlfriend shut the movie up, went to bed, and they're just chatting in bed, and then suddenly he just reaches over and starts apparently just strangling her and kills her.
Oh,
And
weird.
when the police arrive, he just says, "I did it. I can't believe it. I did it." Like almost sounding surprised to me. It sounds like they're just like, "Oh my god, like
Yeah, that one's a little weird.
I just thought I'd try it." So finally, just not to end it on that horrible note, Oliver Stone has responded and done some interviews that touched on the crimes associated with his movie. He said, I'm sure he said a lot of things, but this is the quote I picked out. "The controversy was huge, no question about it. To my mind, almost everything that was important about Natural Born Killers was overlooked amid all the hysteria over the death toll and all the nonsense about whether or not I was promoting violence or instigating murder." Which I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. Again, you were not trying to instigate murder. You're more trying to
I
make
don't
a
think
statement about
anybody
it.
that's making a movie where somebody dies in it is like, I hope somebody murders somebody because of this. I'd really like to be sued for everything I own in the future.
No, no, not an actual filmmaker, unless you're a freaking ISIS guy, like making a snuff film where
Yeah.
you just beheaded someone. You're not doing it to show
Yeah.
that you're a cool guy who can
Yeah.
murder people.
Look at
And it's
my
just
machete.
so stupid. What?
Yeah. Oh, I said, look at my machete.
It's so big.
So much
Yeah.
bigger than your machete. It's so sharp.
But it is, it's just so crazy. It's just like not crazy, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't love that he was like, "Oh, it's all like nonsense" or whatever, being the person that made the movie that's associated with all those things. Like, yeah, you gotta be a little careful with your words, but at the same time, you can't stop people, and like you can't blame everything that's influenced a person for their horrible actions or different things like that. Like, it's just such a slippery
Yeah.
slope. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I've watched plenty of movies that glorified violence, and I'm not gonna go out there and be like, I'm gonna murder a bunch of people.
Yeah, what was this?
So,
or just even things that are more innocent. Like I was listening to something today where the Covenant guy I talked about on one episode, who uses different breathing techniques and stuff. Remember he did marathons in the snow and stuff. They called him the Iceman.
Iceman, yeah.
Iceman, Wim Hof, and they were like, well, I guess there's a documentary out now, and they had watched it, and they were kind of like, it's great for him, but it sounds a little cultish when you're just like, kind of like, oh, you should try this thing because it can like trump all medicine and stuff, and like, you just join us. It's everything you ever wanted. And I was just like, I guess that could be your interpretation, but like, and I, they pointed out that some people had attempted some of his different breathing methods, and like some had actually passed away. I was like, this 15-year-old girl was in a pool trying this like breathing underwater thing and like died. And I was like, holy shit, that sucks. That's really, really, really fucking sad. But I
Yeah.
was like, you also can't just blame one person who said like this thing worked for me, like maybe try it, it could work for you, to like people that go and do things and they're like maybe that was a little like not the smartest to do something like that unsupervised, and like you just didn't think it all the way through, and like
Yeah. Because a
I
lot
don't
of
know.
that kind of stuff, like, you can learn certain aspects of it, like you're controlling your body. Like, there's people that
Yeah, for
can, like,
sure.
manipulate, like, their heart rate to slow down or their blood pressure to go, like, extremely low. Like, there's
Yeah,
things like that that certain people are able to achieve. So,
right, and they might be better at it than others,
yeah.
but at the same time it's not to say that it's necessarily dangerous to ever try anything. It's just like these times when people do things where you're like, well, that was maybe a little ill advised, but you can't necessarily blame the
Yeah.
person that gave you that idea. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, just say it wasn't for you and move on. But,
Yeah, and if you're gonna try something like breathing techniques underwater, like maybe have a supervisor. I don't know. I don't want to sound judgy and like bring it down to such a note like that, but there's we're still people. Like you still have to take responsibility for your own actions. That's all.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I was listening to the radio the other day when I was driving to my parents' house for dinner, and they were talking about apparently we moved on from the stupid like Tide Pod challenge, and now it's people like teenagers on TikTok are being like told that they
Challenge.
should be
Yeah.
consuming borax, like the fucking powdered bleach and stuff. They're putting it in like their drinks because it's supposed to help with like arthritis and like shit. So they're like
What?
literally drinking like borax, like the powdered stuff. Yeah, it's like the new
My
thing they were talking about on the
God.
radio.
I hope
And I was like,
that's
what
like
the
something that's
fuck is wrong with people?
more fake news than real. I find it hard to believe when people can be that stupid. Uh,
Yeah.
like, come on. To,
And they said on the radio, they're like, I miss the days of kids that just like ate glue. I was like, yes. Like,
yeah, just because they were just trying something out on their own. At least Ralph
yeah.
Wiggum, as many times as he ate glue or crayons on The Simpsons, like he wasn't being influenced by some stupid kids around him. He was just being stupid on his own.
Yeah, like
Oh.
Jesus.
Yeah, that reminds me of those ones
Yeah.
where I was like, that can't be real. Where like people be like, oh, what if they had like a cell phone that sits in your house all the time? And you're like, okay, that sounds like a fake TikTok. Like people can't know that there was not phones before cell phones. Like that doesn't make any sense.
My favorite is when people accidentally invent something that like already
Yeah.
exists. Like, what if
Well,
we
that's
had
what
gloves for our feet? And it's like those are called socks. And it's like, oh,
I think that was the general gist of it, where they were like, what if there
yeah.
was a phone? Yeah, it was so. I heard about it secondhand. I'm not doing justice. But
Oh,
please
they're
tell
so
me
great
people
though.
can't be that stupid.
They
What if
probably
there was a
can and are
book that had
somebody in the world.
a book with all the phone numbers in it? No, I don't know.
Yeah. I hate it
Alrighty.
when I forget to back up my phone and then when I upgrade it and I lose all my phone numbers. I wish I could have it written down somewhere.
Oh my god. What if the cloud could be in a book? Hmm.
I could
Damn.
carry it in my pocket. I could call it a pocketbook.
There's this
We're
thing. I'm
so
gonna call it
mean.
a Rolodex. Yeah. Oh my
What if we put a
god.
phone on every street corner and you had to pay a nickel?
Oh, payphones. Well, send
uh,
us your
on
crazy
that note,
inventions. Yeah. Maybe we'll think of some more when we wake up in the middle of the night.
I'll text you. I just invented a car wash. What are
Okay.
we doing next week?
Oh god.
Yeah.
Ooh. Gonna talk about some NDEs, as the cool kids call it. Some near-death experiences. I hate it when people just throw in
Yeah.
acronyms, by the way. So sometimes people be like, NDE. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? I look it up. I'm like, oh, okay. Near-death experiences. Fine. Just say it then.
Yeah, I feel like that's not a well-known acronym, so.
It isn't. I've heard it in a couple podcasts, and I'm like, okay, I get
Okay.
it. But also, when you're talking out loud, it doesn't take that long to say something. What I hate it when people shorten nowadays, and is instead of saying something is giving you like, ooh, that's giving me like Stranger Things vibes. They'll be just like, ooh, that's giving Stranger Things. I'm like, can you like finish that thought, or is that
I've
just
never
like, is
heard
that?
that before. Apparently, I'm talking to the wrong people.
Oh, everybody is just like, they just don't say the vibes now. They just say, oh, that's giving this person. And I'm like, can we stop this trend? I hate it. Are we just going to keep cutting words off sentences until we sound like Kevin on The Office being like, why say many word when one word to trick?
I love it. Yeah.
That is the future, people, of where we're going with this.
Let's get all like it's like all fucking descriptive words. Let's cut out every second word in every sentence to
I'm gonna go
save
back to
time.
using super fancy words that, people would be like, what does that mean? And then you just like, fine, I
It's
won't
my
use
word of the
fancy
day.
words. Yeah.
It's my word of the day.
I'm gonna be like, that's egregious and that's gratuitous, and throw out my $5 words with 4 syllables. You guys
I'm
are
gonna
just
get
gonna
you
have to
a
look it
word
up.
of the day calendar that you rip off and it has every single day has a word. You can keep it on your desk.
Oh, my mom found some of our old magnetic poetry that had the big fancy words, and I was like, oh, I remember this. Gratuitous.
Nice.
Misanthrope, which means bastard. A mean
Oh,
bastard.
I didn't know that.
Oh my god, okay, cut me off.
I knew
I'm
it was bad,
done.
but
Yeah, yeah.
all right. Well,
Alrighty.
catch you next week. Bye.
Yes, yes. So don't forget to rate and review. And we'll see you next time. Keep it cryptic.